Welcome to Wine Soundtrack International. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Alison Levine, and today I'm with Antonio Capaldo of Feudi di San Gregorio in Campania, Italy. Ciao, Antonio. Welcome to Wine Soundtrack, and tell us about Feudi di San Gregorio.
Ciao, Alison. Ciao to everybody. Feudi di San Gregorio started around 30 years ago in Campania, in the central part of Campania. It's a winery that focuses on the indigenous varietals of the south, Falanghina, Greco, Aglianico, that have an enormous history. And the mission is to bring these historic wines into the contemporary times.
Wonderful. So tell me, how much wine do you produce each year?
In cases, 250,000 cases overall.
And you talked about the kind of wine. Where do you sell your wine? What markets are they available in?
We mostly sell in Italy. There is an enormous knowledge of the southern and Campania wines, in particular southern Italian wines in Italy. So we sell 70% there. And then the US market is the largest export market, followed by Germany and Japan.
Fantastic. So, I mean, you grew up in Italy where wine is part of your life. What is your first memory relevant to wine?
I think my dad gave me wine when I was 2, but I don't remember that. And I did the same when my kid now turned 2. We had some sparkling and we made him taste with my wife. So my memory is quite old. What I remember is that I had my first serious glass of wine when I was 15. And for a long time, like from 15 to 20, which is a long time for an Italian, I didn't like drinking, to be honest. And then I rediscovered and I recovered all this time in the following years.
And this is a family business. Has your family been in the wine business your entire life?
Yes, I am second generation. So my wine has been in our life forever.
So you grew up around it, and yet you didn't like it until you were 20.
No, maybe, when it's something you know too much and you live in that, maybe you want to feel different. And I don't know, when you hear about wine all the time, you need to create your own curiosity and your own willingness to know and to learn more, because otherwise you give everything for granted. So this period has been particularly important because when I came back, when I was 20, I came back to wine. I had an enormous curiosity. So I started traveling for wine. So it was useful, to be honest.
So in all of your travels, what would you say is the most memorable wine you ever drank? Or there might be many. So what is one of the most memorable wines, and what was the occasion?
In travels, I remember I had a wonderful Riesling in Vienna, in this wonderful restaurant called Steyerek, which is one of the best restaurants in the world. And this Riesling was from Prague, if I'm not wrong, Austrian. So, and Riesling remains one of my favorite varietals. Then I have many memories with champagne, to be honest, which is something that when we are proud to be Italian, and I'm always speak great things about Italian wines, and there are many I can name, but I have to be honest, I have to concede that I have incredible memories with the champagne.
So traveling the world abroad, what is the best foreign wine you've ever drunk? Is it that Austrian Riesling? Is it champagne, or is there something else?
The best, the very best. The very best is, to be honest, I have a short memory, so no, because otherwise you charge this memory with other things, romanticism. To be honest, I really have a very clear remembering of what I had for the last 12 months. And there is a wine that there are a few wines from Priorat in Spain that struck me really. So champagne is great. You know what you're drinking. There are incredible champagnes I love, but these wines from Priorat are a total discovery, and I'm continuing drinking it. And I have to be honest, you don't find them everywhere. In Italy, it's difficult because the culture is very domestic, so you only drink Italian. So it's not easy. So I mostly drink it when I travel, and I would say Priorat.
So you've had the pleasure to travel, and you were just saying that, you drink very locally when you're home. I mean, that's just the nature of the industry. Among all the populations in the world, who do you think drinks the best in terms of quality?
I think Italians drink well. US is weird because you have a it's like a very diversified market or place, because you have people who have an incredible knowledge and drink very well, and then you have so many people that don't even know wine or don't even drink wine, or they're very attached to the traditional varietals of Californian or US wine. So I would say Italians, I would say French, I would say Japanese. The Japanese who drink, because some of them don't drink, but the Japanese who drink have an incredible culture of wine. At least this is what I experienced.
Wow. So if we were to come to your home and go into your cellar, and I'm sure you have a proper cellar because you're
All
Italian.
Italians do. All Italians do.
What would we find in your cellar?
In my cellar, you find champagne. In my cellar, you find many wines from Piedmont. But you find there are a few wines I really love, of which I have different vintages. One is from Tuscany, it's called Flaccianello della Pieve from Fonte. Another wine is San Leonardo from Trentino. These are wines of which I have different verticals, etc. You will find many wines from Bourgogne, both white and red. This is what you find. Then you find also some of my wines.
And is there anything in particular that's drinking really well in your cellar right now?
Right now, I would say that I had last week. I'm remembering. Yeah, I would say this Domaine Le Fleuve Pouligny Montrachet, the 2013. It was incredible. But unfortunately, drinking well, but it's finished, so I have to buy another one.
Well, it gave you great pleasure, so.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, these wines they speak history, they speak terroir, which is something we all try to do. They speak history, and the thing that I love about these wines, when somebody who makes wine drinks another wine, there is always an element of pleasure. So you have to forget that you're doing it because you work in the sector. But there is always an element of a learning opportunity. So for me, what I learned about French producers of the top end, whether it is Bordeaux, Bourgogne, or Champagne, is that they are so experienced that they are now very simple in what they do. So they don't need to overwhelm. I mean, they don't need to show off anything when they make wine. So Domaine Le Fleuve is a wine that speaks terroir, super simple, oak, perfect oak. There is a lot of work behind it, but I think this is what I learned about these wines. And this Domaine Le Fleuve is always a very nice learning opportunity, and this is always a very good way of getting drunk, if possible.
Yeah, if we all could enjoy that.
Yes.
So when you speak about terroir and you think about these different grapes, do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
For me, it's Riesling. I have an answer. It's but you cannot grow it everywhere. But for me, having visited the Mosel, it's a wonderful varietal, very resilient. It's wonderful on both sides, from a production standpoint because it's very resilient, and from a tasting standpoint because it's always surprising how this wine evolves throughout the years. And for me, I'm not fully professional in Riesling, of course, but even the people who work in Riesling, they're always quite surprised how a wine can have an evolution in the bottle, and how sometimes the wine looks younger the year after you drank it for the first time, which is unusual. Usually the wine changes, but it follows a path that is in a way foreseeable. Riesling, for me, it's a surprise, and that's why it makes it perfect, because a wine is a wine in a synonym of joy. You drink it with friends, and so to have something that surprises you, that strikes you, that excites you, it's adding something to the experience. That's why my answer would be Riesling.
So let's see how quick you can answer this one.
I will.
What's your opinion on wine critics and scores?
Very
not so quick to answer that one.
No. I don't think about them. I mean, doing my work, I don't think about them, not even 1 second. There are journalists I like to differentiate because I know them. So I know how not all of them are genuine, not all of them are authentic in what they do, to be honest. And I think that some of them are very good friends, and I love when they like my wines, exactly like when a friend from high school tells me that he enjoyed my wine. That's what I try to do. Then, of course, scores are important for the market, for everything. But honestly, the best thing we can do as producers, also for the sake of the critics themselves, is not think of them when we make our wines, not think of them when we pour our wines. not speak about the scores ourselves, let the market speak if they want. So my opinion is that we need something, because the variety, in the Italian wine in particular, we have 3,000 varietals. We need somebody to vehiculate this to the public. So of course you have the sommelier, but it's a niche. You're in a restaurant and it depends on the wine list. So I think we need wine critics. There is a new generation that is wonderful in terms of curiosity, knowledge, and not having a relatively restricted areas of interest such as Italy, Piedmont, and Tuscany, and that's it. So I'm excited about this new wave, but I think we should, as producers, we should not care about this too much. It's not easy every day, but we should.
So let's talk about as a consumer of wine. Quick answer: red, white, or rosé?
White.
Still or sparkling?
Depends, both. Now, this I cannot give an answer. It really depends.
And as you drink wine and, drinking red, white, rosé, sparkling, and whatever the mood takes you, how do you approach pairing wine with food? Do you follow rules? Do you think there's something that works or doesn't work? Or do you just open what you want and eat what you want?
No, I kind of follow rules, even if they're not as restricted as sometimes the sommelier wanted. But I really think that to enjoy wine, you need the right food. So honestly, I don't. There are food that are very difficult to pair, like artichokes. They have the bitter side, so everything can be paired. But when I want to open a great bottle of wine, I always think about the food. But I do the other way around. I start with the wine usually, but that's my job. So I start with the wine, and then I try to have the right food. Also because we're not great cookers in the house. My wife is worse than me. So what? We actually, she's way worse. But this is a very bad answer, because I'm kind of implying that she should be better than me, but she's not. And so we start with the wine, but she's a better drinker than me. So we always start with the wine, and then we go with the food. But we think about the pairing, because it's important, because otherwise you lose part of the quality of the wine.
Right. Is there something that you're looking for in that pairing, what you're trying to achieve?
I like the idea of the two things go in parallel. So there are two ways of pairing. Now, one is by contrast, one is that consistency. I like usually pairings in consistency, both in structure, in length, in balance, in sapidity. So overall, I try to look for this.
So you mentioned that your wife can drink you under the table.
My wife, she's great, because we took a sommelier diploma together. She's better than me, as many women are in the nose, in the recognition of the wines. She's great because she's, first of all, she's a constant challenge to the quality of the wines we produce. Because, of course, being an insider, I hear her more than what an average wife hear. No, a husband hears on average a wife, because I really respect her expertise, and she can give very insightful opinions about my wines. And then secondly, because she likes to drink and experience, she's a great companion, because we usually, now a little bit less, but we used to drink a bottle in two of us. And before, actually, I drink 2 glasses and she finishes the rest. Now we are doing it a little bit less, but she's a great companion. You need somebody to experience wine, otherwise it's difficult.
So when you drink a little too much, when you up it to that full bottle between the two, or open up the second bottle, do you have any remedies for hangovers?
We have 2 different remedies. We follow 2 different. My wife, she becomes totally unbearable from a character standpoint. So she's behavior. She's. So the only thing that's good for her is to sleep. So she sleeps as much as possible. No? For me, the best remedy for hangover is in the morning to drink. It's not particularly surprising, but to drink half a liter of water in the morning, even before going to bed, drinking half a liter. So I like the idea. Some people drink a bottle of sparkling in the morning wine to overcome. I don't think it's really working. It's nice for the industry, but I don't think it's really working. I think water works.
Yeah, well, we always hope that we'll find some secret, plan, but you guys don't give us any more insight. We all suffer the same way, and it's the same issue. Drink water. Yeah,
drink water works. And I think, honestly, the hangover, it depends also on the wine, how bad the hangover can be. But I think drinking water is good. And the thing is, you should know that you could sleep a little bit longer in the morning. It's important, because otherwise the day after is great. You're just a little bit messed up.
So going back to your wine, what do you think someone who's not tried your wine is missing out on?
I think just somebody who hasn't drunk my wines is missing something authentic, an unusual experience, because in Southern Italian wines you expect heavy wines, and actually we are in an area that enjoys incredible climate conditions, volcanic soil, and indigenous varietals that has an enormous history. This gives authenticity, but also drinkability, structure, pleasure. So these are varietals that are wonderful. So I think you're missing a piece of Italy that is incredibly authentic, that speaks history, but speaks also terroir. And you're missing also a possibility to show off with your friends, because not many people know my varietals, Greco and Fiano for whites and Aglianico for reds. So I think it's a good opportunity also to show that you have a knowledge that goes beyond Chianti and Brunello and Amarone.
So if you were going to show off your wines, if space aliens landed at your winery, what wine would you want to present them with?
I will present one white, which is a Greco di Tufo. Greco is the grape. It's called Greco because it comes from Greece, and Tufo is the name of a town where Greco is particularly explosive and expressive. So it's a DOCG, and I would present this because it's a really unusual and unique white wine. The vines grow close to sulfurous mines in volcanic soil. So the minerality is incredible. It's almost a fake red. So it's a wine that if you taste totally blind, I mean without looking at them, you would think it's a red. So it's a white with the structure of a red without having a long oak aging. It expresses incredible characteristics of structure and minerality. So I think it's something that you haven't tasted elsewhere. And the second wine I would propose is a wine that we only do at Feudi. So it's a single vineyard called Serpico. It's not the Al Pacino movie. It's the name of a town. Serpico is a vineyard also of 4 hectares where we do this wine is an Aglianico, as a grape, and it's all made of pre-Phylloxera vines because the volcanic sandy soil didn't allow the Phylloxera to attack the roots. So they're all vines that are over 150 years old, high like trees, over 3 meters. And this wine is unique because for me, it's a great wine. But on the other hand, it's me talking. So of course it's a great wine. But it's also for us, it's the root of everything we do because we replanted the clones from this vine. So is the basis of all our viticulture. Is in other words, it's the soul of our winery.
So talking about winemaking and being in the vineyard, every vintage tells a different story. Do you think that vintage variation happens more or less? Do you think that each vintage shows more similarity or more differences?
It's a difficult question because you are always, again, it's a matter of memory. Sometimes the time transforms your memory. So if you think about the people on the ground, they all say that it's worse and worse. The people who work the vines in my winery, they always say that it's worse and worse, getting more and more worse, because they have to also to be tributed by the capability to face these challenges increasingly. But the reality is that honestly, the last 4 vintages, I've seen an incredible mix of seasons. So the seasons messed up. So it's either, for instance, this year we had a May, which was incredibly rainy. Now we have June that is 40 degrees with like August. So the reality is that we are seeing increasingly challenges vintages, much more than just say it's hotter, because it's not true. 2 years ago we had frost in April, mid-April. So in reality is that the variability that is increasing. So the question was absolutely accurate, and I would say it's increasing.
And so are there any signs or omens that you look for that will predict what a vintage will give you?
No.
Do you have any rituals or traditions in the winery when harvest starts or ends, or at any point throughout harvest?
People who work, they have too much to work. They don't do a ritual. I do because I'm lucky, because I manage the winery as well. So I'm not in the vine, so I can do rituals. And I have this small red horn that's typical of southern Italy that brings good luck. So every time during the harvest, I take it out and I bring it with me all the time. And then the second thing I do is that I look at weather all the time. But the problem is not really just rain, etc. The problem is that we harvest late, because they are all late harvest varietals, between October, even beginning of November. So the real thing that I want to avoid is a hailstorm. So I'm always, every day, I check the weather in the morning. early. And so but the weather, it's also interesting because we have our area, as all areas of Italy, there are different micro areas. So I have like 5 or 6 locations on my iPhone that I check that are sometimes quite different. So it's a thing that takes half an hour because I check them. Then I call the people and I ask them, because there are farmers that have been there forever that predict. Most of the time they're wrong, but they predict. So the thing that I like about this ritualism is that there is a self-generated anxiety about what's going to happen next day. And there is nothing you can do about it, but still you generate anxiety. You cannot manage that. So the following day, then you generate anxiety on the day after. So it's a nice period.
It sounds like an obsession more than a habit.
Yeah, it's an obsession. But all of us, we have an obsession. Because the reality, when you try to explain the wine business, many people think that because you have expensive wines and sometimes you have beautiful labels, it's true, wine is connected with art, is connected with culture, is connected with history. But sometimes people forget that it's first of all connected with nature, and we are really under this. We say in Italy, you are under the sky, you are under God will. No, in reality, that's true. And you cannot, like in other productions like spirits or beer, you can find, or coffee, or you can find the raw material different period of the year from different places. In the wine production, you only have that moment. So every time at harvest, it's like the nature remembers us that wine is a natural product. Then throughout the year, then we come to the US, then we try to forget, okay, we're just selling a product, but in reality, or a culture, or history, or a piece of Italy, it's all true. But at the end of the day, we're selling a piece of nature. No? And the harvest is this individual moment that brings us back this idea.
So you spoke earlier that you didn't really get into wine until you were 20 years old. What did you want to be when you grew up?
No, but I actually, more importantly, not only I didn't drink, then I did totally different things. First of all, I was in investment banking for 4 years in Paris, and then that was important for drinking French wines. I also met my wife; she's a French, from the age of 22 to 26. Then I went to London School of Economics. I did my PhD. I wanted to do development economics. I did a thesis on microfinance in Bangladesh. It was interesting. So the answer is I wanted to do many things. Then I went to international consulting. And when I was 32, so after 10 years of working around and traveling around, I decided it was time to go back to wine. So the reality is that I really was important because my dad always told me not to go into wine. And it was a way to stimulate other interests. Because people that do only one thing in their life, they can do it very well, but maybe they miss something else. And I can say that because for 10 years of my life, I wanted to do many different things. And so now I make wine, but I still think I can do other things. So the reality, I'm a little bit stressed person. So no, it's not true, but I'm a little bit, I cultivate these various interests. And it's good that I came into wine as a family business, not because I had to, but because really I wanted to. And that's something that I think in every family business helps, because otherwise you have your frustration because you wanted to do something else, but you didn't want that your father and mother be disappointed. For me, I was very lucky because I could travel, I could do other jobs, I could prove that I could be successful, let's say, in other things. Maybe I would be even more successful than making wine in other realms. And then I came back. So yeah, I wanted to do, the thing I really wanted to do more was when I was a real kid, I wanted to be a pope, but I wanted to get married at the same time. I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Conflict.
Yeah, conflict. Yes. And then more when I was young, when I was older, I wanted to do to work in the United Nations in development economics. This was something I really would have loved to do. Then growing up, I decided to do something different.
Wow. So you said you're high stress. What do you do in your free time to de-stress?
I play with my kids, and playing with kids is not an anti-stress. It's just a stress replacer. So you have another form of stress that replaces that, and then. But I improved a lot in managing my own stress. So yeah, I play with my kids, with my family. And then the thing I honestly is not particularly exciting, but when I'm stressed about something, I try to solve it. So at the end of the day, I work more, which is not the best answer, but it's true.
So no other leisure activities or sports or things that you do?
With my wife, we do kickboxing. And then I like to swim. Sport, yes, but to be honest, it's a phase of my life where work is in the center, and wine is beautiful because actually it can fill all your time. Unfortunately, the vines never sleep. The wines, the markets never sleep because wines are drunk in the weekends, in the evenings, in all around the clock in different countries. So the reality is that if you wanna work, you always have an opportunity to do it. So unfortunately, I do it too much.
So how old are your kids?
3 and 5.
3 and 5. So on the rare occasions that you take a break from stress, get the kids to sleep, and you and your wife have a romantic evening, clearly neither of you are cooking each other dinner.
No.
What do you do for a romantic evening? And more importantly, what are the wines you would be pulling out for a romantic evening?
Okay, so for a romantic evening, we usually go out for, as I explained to you, we usually go out for dinner, or we stay home, we watch a movie, and eating is not the first of the problems. Drinking is important. So generally, in this period of our life, we go for champagne again. Sometimes we taste. What I like also, sometimes we taste historic vintages of what we do in terms of whites, because they show very well after 10, 15 years. And it's not something you do every day, because on the market, they often want fresh vintages. So it's also something we share to see, to discuss. But generally speaking, we want to drink something. We don't want to talk about wine, because my wife started working with me in January, so six months ago. So actually, we try not to bring this at home. So champagne is also a good answer, because it's a joyful wine, and you don't talk about this too much. You just enjoy it. So I like it.
Okay, so you're Italian, so I have to ask you, are you a supporter of any teams?
Yes, Lazio from Rome.
And if Lazio won, do I say if or when?
When
they win. When they win, what wine would you want to present them with?
Then it's interesting, because I spoke about many other wines different than mine.
Uh-huh.
That would be a moment where I would drink my wines, because it's a sign of it's something. Football team is something is very personal. So I would put the two things together: drinking one wine from my winery of a very good vintages, or a very good appellation that I prefer, that I remember, and celebrating. So it's more personal. So I like
any particular wine of yours?
My one of my favorite reds. I didn't talk about this because it's not as iconic as Serpico, but it's called Piano di Montevergine. It's a Taurasi, which is the highest appellation is DOCG. It's an Aglianico as well, and it's a single vineyard from these 4 hectares that we planted ourselves in '86. First vintage we planted, so it's vines that are 33 years old. So it's very historic because my family planted it. So it's a wine that we are very attached. All the other vines we bought it and they were already planted. Some of them are older, some of them are younger. This was the only vineyard that we planted immediately after starting making wine. So it's a wine I like to share.
So what would you say the best piece of advice is that you ever received?
All advices came from my dad, all advices that are meaningful in my life. What is interesting is that the real important advice of my life are the ones that it didn't give me. So the ones that he gave me by example rather than talking. So my dad was a person that, he's still alive. He's a person that doesn't speak too much, particularly in the family. But he gave me an incredible example of how to behave in life and to stick to values, to be brave. And this, I think being brave, courage is the thing that I really value more in life. And I have it all from my dad.
And if you could give our listeners a piece of advice, what would you share with them?
It's something a bit dull, but it's true. I mean, you should really live every day as it was your last day, And I think it's something I also do with wine. I drink one wine like it was the last one. So you should enjoy really every moment. And I think it's sometimes we spend really too much in the daily, I told you, in the daily anxieties of our work, and we forget about the real pleasures. And my kids, the two people that gave me best advice are actually my dad and my kids. And both, they didn't, as I said, they didn't speak. They just show me. My dad showed me by example. My kids, they show me because I understand the value of time. And I think the only thing that, because I don't spend enough time with them and I should spend more time with them. And I think the thing that you understand is that there is always time later in your life to sleep. There is always time later in your life to do useless things like playing on, I don't know, I don't want to judge anybody, but like playing on your cell phone. I think there are people who do it, they are free to do it, but I think it's a way of losing a lot of opportunities to meet people, hang out with people. And it's something, when I say that, I say it to myself because I spend a lot of time on myself too. But I think you should value every moment and you should really try to focus on the most important things. No?
Looking back at your work, what would you say your proudest achievement to date is in the work?
In the work, it has been to be able, in these 10 years, I was the chairman of the winery. Within these 10 years, I was able to complete all the creativity efforts that have been launched before. So my job, of course, I launched also a new project. My job was really to be consistently, quite obsessively willing to close every project that was launched at the beginning. Every new, because it was kind of a startup in wine, because in Italy, if you don't have 10 generations, you're like not a wine producer. So we started in 86. When I came in 2009, we already had a number of projects, like we are doing a Champenoise method. We had the property also in other regions. So my work has been obsessive to bring everything to reality. All the dreams that were attached to the launch of Feudi di San Gregorio, to the first steps, I wanted them to become real. And I think this is important because it's providing me with the basis to launch a new creativity wave, which is happening now.
Okay, I want you to complete a sentence for me.
Yeah.
A table without wine is like?
A piece of wood, a place to sleep, a useless thing.
Okay. We're at a restaurant and there is somebody sitting at a table drinking your wine. The paparazzi walk by and shoot. It's a very famous person from any walk of life, living, deceased. And in that photo, your bottle of wine is sitting there. Who would you want that person to be?
Letizia Casta. She's a French supermodel. She was a French supermodel. My wife knows. So she was. It's usually that I try to find a smart answer. That's not the point. And it's better than an average football player. So I would say Letizia Casta because she was like a kind of a girl dream when I was young. She's my age, approximately 40, I think 41. And she's a very nice synonym of elegance. Beyond the fact that she's super beautiful, she's a very beautiful synonym of elegance. So I would love her to drink it, yeah.
What do you think the future of wine is? Do you think that we'll be drinking wine in 300 years, 500 years?
Yes, I think it's, of course, I think the wine we will change something. I mean, all the trends towards organic, sustainable, all the work that has been done to make the wines more elegant, lighter. There are also some people that do wines without alcohol. That for me is not wine yet, but maybe in the future, why not? I think there are many trends, but I think people will continue to enjoy wine because it's been in our culture forever. There are entire countries that haven't even discovered wine, and even in a country where wine was here forever, like Italy, we reduced significantly the amount of wine per year, but we are improving the quality, and people are still accompanying the best moment of their life with wine. So I think it's going to be there forever. Yeah.
Well, on the off chance that there is no more, and you're on a deserted island,
yeah,
and you can take 3 wines with you. Of course, it's your island, so you don't have to worry about storage or weather to make the decision. What are the 3 wines you would take with you?
First of all, let me say 27 liters. So first of all, the size, you didn't say the size of the bottle, no?
No, it's your island.
So I would go with 3 big bottles, no? And I would have one of my wines. So probably the Piano di Montevergine. The Taurasi is a Piano di Montevergine 2001. That for me was a blockbuster wine and made us known internationally. So when I'm in a desert island, it's a good memory. of what my family did before I joined and what I was able, if so, before actually I got to the desert island to create in the winery. So one would be that one. The second one would be Chateau d'Yquem, because I think that dessert wines, they can, first of all, they last more in the bottle because they have residual sugar that protects them from oxidation. So that's important because 27 liters takes a long time. And second, I think that something sweet, without being too sweet, but something sweet is nice to accompany your day. And then I would go for a white, and I would go for probably a Domaine Le Fleuve.
You've traveled a bit, but what is one winemaking region in the world that's at the top of your list to visit next?
That I've already been, or that I want?
I don't know. Somewhere you want to go back to. Where do you want to still explore?
There are two places I want to go. The one is Mongolia. That would love
for wine?
No, for pleasure. Just I would love to take the Orient Express from Moscow to Beijing, and in the middle stop there. I think it's incredible because the rural part of China is still quite undiscovered and quite historic, and there are also people making wine there. But for once, I would avoid going there. And then the second trip, and this would be a trip I can take with my wife. There is a second trip she doesn't want to take, which is Africa, Namibia, Botswana, to a safari, and this is something she doesn't like. It's another place I want to go. Repeated traveler, more the cities. Cities have been part of my life. So London, which is my favorite city around the world, Vienna, New York. I always come. It's a great pleasure.
Is there no winemaking region that you want to visit?
I visited almost all of them. There is South Africa I haven't visited, and I'm curious to see. And I would say that I want to go back to Spain again. Yeah, Priorat, Rioja. This is something I've been, but I don't remember very well. So I would love to come back.
So before we go, we're almost finished. We play a little game at the end of Wine Soundtrack, because wine and music go hand in hand. So going back to some of the wines that you've spoken about today that you like to drink, I want you to tell me what music. It can be a genre, it can be a specific song, a musician. What would you want to be drinking and listening to, or what kind of mood does it put you in? So let's start with your beloved champagne.
In general, all the wines that we will be pairing, so I gain some time. All the wines we'll be pairing are all with rock music. Okay. Fair enough. I would go with Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
Historic, always appropriate, always modern, even if we're talking about 40 years old albums.
Okay, what about the Domaine Le Fleuve?
Domaine Le Fleuve, it's more like Rolling Stones. Continuing to rock.
Austrian Riesling.
Austrian Riesling is like, it's difficult. It's more regular. It's like a little bit more Amnesty International rock, like something like John Bon Jovi or Bryan Adams. Okay, Bryan Adams from late years. So Sting now. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't want to say. No, it's. They have an incredible story. They can talk a great terroir, but there's something that it's something reliable, but not the same spike as the wines we listed before.
Okay, what about your Greco di Tufo?
Muse, more modern, more new, because they are relatively new. But I think this is, for me, is one of the most meaningful rock bands now. So if they are rock, I don't know, they are a mix of different. It's a mix of different sounds. It's the new wave of rock, which is not pure rock. So I would love that.
Okay, and your Tarazi.
Tarazi is more like AC/DC, a bit of a classic. And not for everyone. So this and not for everyone, not because they're snobbish. It's really that many people like it, but not all of the people like it. And I could experience that. For some people, it's a wine that is difficult to approach, although we try our best to make it drinkable. So I like a band that is really not for everyone because the sounds are a little bit too strong. So maybe, AC/DC.
Oh, I could keep going, a lot more rock references, but I'm going to let you off the hook. You've done a great job. Antonio, I want to thank you for joining us today. And before we go, can you let our listeners know, can they visit Feudi di San Gregorio? Where can they find your wines?
Yeah, you can, first of all, thank you, Alison. Thank you, everyone. We have our website is feudi.it, and we have a hospitality. We have a Michelin star restaurant in the winery, currently closed, but reopens in November. So if you plan your trip, it's going to be open again. And you can find our wines in many, many places. If you write us through the website, we can address you in your markets where you can find them. And definitely it's worth a visit. Is from Naples is 1 hour, from the Amalfi Coast is 1 hour. So if you are tired of being by the beach, you can spend 1 hour. You could take 1 hour and come and spend the day with us.
Fantastic. Well, we hope to visit you in Campania.
Thank you, Alison. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack International. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.